I'm in an airport right now, and I'm on my way to India, actually. I'm going to be shooting part of the trauma recovery course while I'm there. Um, so I'll speak as loud as I can. Please forgive. There's going to be announcements coming on the loudspeaker and stuff like that because we're in an airport. So I need you to bear with me. I'm so happy to be able to talk to you guys today about thought boundaries. It was actually Brian and I were having a conversation, and he mentioned something that I said in a talk really in passing that he found interesting, which was this concept of thought boundaries. And I said, I really appreciate you bringing that up because if you found that interesting, maybe other people may find this concept interesting as well. And so thought boundaries are literally putting boundaries on our thoughts. It's something that can help us to improve our low self-worth, our low self-esteem, to increase in confidence. And so if you're someone who would like to increase your confidence, who would like to continue to feel steadily motivated and purpose-driven, if you're someone who wants to improve your happiness in life, if you're someone who wants to meet your goals, who wants to feel good, have less anxiety, less depression, then you need to know how to set thought boundaries. Now, in order to get into this concept of thought boundaries, the first thing I need to do is expound upon the concept of boundaries in the first place. So let's review what boundaries are, okay? Now, this is very important. And if anyone, moderators, can you make sure you guys let these people in the room that are trying to get in? If anyone feels even a little bit fuzzy on boundaries, it is absolutely imperative that everyone here understands the concept of boundaries very, very well. So get your notes. And here's what I need you to be able to answer, because if I ever see you on the street, if I ever do a session with you, I may pop this question to you anytime because it's one of the most important questions in healing. And the question is, what are boundaries? What is my definition of boundaries? Are you thinking on that? Now, if someone thinks they're pretty smart, you can try to write the answer in the chat. What is my definition of boundaries? This is absolutely imperative that all of you have this memorized. A boundary is a rule that you make up. A boundary is a rule that you make up. It is absolutely imperative that you understand that. It's a rule that you make up. Now, typically we make boundaries to protect ourselves, but we also make boundaries to protect our values. We also make boundaries to protect other people. And we also make boundaries to limit our own authority. You see, first of all, you have things that you need to protect. The things that you need to protect are your values. Your values are your natural resources. So if you think of yourself like a country, a nation has to protect their natural resources. You have the responsibility, you have the authority over your resources. They belong to no one else. What are your resources? They are your time, your energy, your talents. It's anything you're born with. It's anything you've acquired. Your money, your car, your house, your material goods are a part of your resources. Your beauty, your body is a part of your resources. Your reputation is a part of your resources, right? Time, energy, talents, right? So other people don't have a right to these things. These things belong to you. And it is your job, it is your responsibility to protect them. And you have absolute authority over these things. Those are resources. Is that making sense? So you have the job of protecting these things. So as an authority of these things, if someone calls you up and says, hey, can you come over and just spend some time? They're asking for your resources. Spend time, energy. That's them asking for your resources. They don't have a right to it. You have to decide as the king or queen if you will allow someone else to have access to these resources. So when you decide that someone's taking up too much resources or you don't want them to have resources and you assert that, that is a boundary. A boundary is a rule that you make up. So when you simply say to your mom, dad, brother, sister, yeah, you know what, I can come over, but I can only stay till 3. You made up that rule. That is a boundary. I can only stay till 3. Can you see how saying I can only stay till 3 is a protection of you and your resources? You say, I can only stay till 3. Now, when you get there, there's a boundary set. So when they get to talking too much or going too long and they get to be draining, they look at the time. Oh, look at that. 3 o'clock. I got to get going. Why? Because I set a boundary. We also have to be able to set boundaries around our values. We also have to be able to set boundaries around our own authority. Setting boundaries around your own authority means that sometimes you can be in a position where you're not just having authority over yourself, but you have other people who are falling under your authority, like your children, like the people you're babysitting, like your employees, right? People on your team. And so you have to set limits to your own authority in order for them to be happy. For instance, we say to our kids, here, this is my house, but this is your bedroom. And in your bedroom, you're welcome to close the door and have privacy. That is you setting a boundary on yourself, on your own authority. If you close the door, I'll knock. That is you setting a boundary for their benefit. Does that make sense? You made the rule, but you're abiding by the rule so that they can benefit. Good leaders set boundaries on their own authorities. And that's why when they campaign, they say, hey, I'm not going to tax the such and such, because they could tax such and such. They're saying they won't, because that will make you view them as a good leader and hopefully elect them into office. So the mark of a good leader is someone who sets boundaries on their own authority rather than becoming authoritarian. The poor leaders, which many parents that we may know or have had, they don't want to set the boundaries on their authority. So it's like, I'm your mom, I can see this, I can do this, I can, and they're reading your journals and they're going through your stuff and they never set any boundaries on their authority and they don't respect your boundaries. And so when you come out of a system and an environment like that, you're not clear on what boundaries are, but now all of you must commit to memory this definition. What is a boundary? What is a boundary? A boundary is a rule that you make up. Very good. Very good. A boundary is a rule that you make up. You have the authority to make up boundaries over anything that is under your dominion, under your authority, especially your natural resources. You have the authority to make those boundaries, set those rules. So we kind of have a basic understanding laid out there of boundaries. But now let's take it a step further, right? Because how do we set thought boundaries? Boundaries over our own thinking. And why is it so important? Well, we have to understand how to utilize boundaries in our daily life. There's 3 steps to your boundaries. You got to make the boundaries, you got to assert the boundaries, and you got to enforce the boundaries. If you're taking notes, that was make boundaries, assert boundaries, enforce boundaries. Those are your job as the authoritarian, as the king, as the queen, as the ruler, as you sit on your throne. You make up the boundaries, meaning you're creating it. You're deciding, you know, this is a boundary I'm going to create, or this is a rule that I will decide upon. Now, remember, your authority here is absolute. So you get to make up the rule anytime you want. You can make up any type of rule you want when it comes to your boundaries. So I could literally be sitting next to, let's say I'm sitting next to a girl right here. She's got her hand on my arm. And let's say her hand is on my arm for a half hour. I can decide at any time I don't want her hand on my arm because that's my arm. I have authority over my arm. So at any time I can say, you mind taking your hand off me, please? And set a boundary. And at any time I can change that boundary and say, hey, it's okay if you want to touch my arm again. That is how much authority we have over making boundaries. The next thing we have to do is assert our boundaries. Asserting your boundaries means to speak them out. Here's another definition you should commit to memory. This comes out of the dictionary. The definition of asserting or to assert is to state facts. It's just a state of fact. Generally, what you're doing with a boundary is you're stating a fact or letting someone know that there's a boundary here. You're letting someone know what you think, how you feel, what you want to do, what you would like them to do. But it's just a fact like, hey, there's a boundary line here, stating facts. I'm cold. I'm hungry. I don't want to. I don't like when you do that. I'm not coming. You have a responsibility as the ruler to inform the people around you where the boundary is. If you don't tell people where it is, it's like a nation that doesn't tell people what the laws are. You're going to look weird when you start flipping out that someone's crossing a boundary when you never asserted what the boundary is. So you have the job, you have the responsibility to use your words, speak up, and tell people, this is my boundary. No, I'm leaving at 3. If I come, I'm leaving at 3. That is your responsibility. Let people know. Here's an amazing way of asserting boundaries that escapes people. Sometimes we don't think of this. Put them in writing. After all, a nation puts their laws in writing, don't they? When your boundaries are in writing, it's a lot harder for people to say, you never said that. I didn't know that. I thought you said something else, right? So put your boundaries in writing. You can do that by sending a text message, sending an email. Does that seem like extra, maybe for like your own spouse or something like that? It's not. It's right on the money. You don't want to argue, do you? One of the best ways to end the arguing between you and your spouse about a certain subject is to just go ahead and put it in writing, what it is that you want, what it is you expect, or what the solution or the conclusion of a situation is going to be. It ends the fighting. You just put it in writing, send them an email. Hey, look, here's what I'm thinking, this, that, and the other. Then when they get the email, it's done, it's in writing. Okay, we're splitting, this money's going to your bank account, this money's going to my bank account. Set boundaries, put them in writing. And then there's no confusion. There's less confusion over what was agreed upon or what we're going to do or what the plan is, right? So your job is to assert, to make known what your boundary is. The third, and equally as important as any of these, is to enforce your boundary. Now, what does it mean to enforce a boundary? When we think of enforcement, sometimes we're thinking of cops, military, someone who's going to come in. Rarely ever does enforcing your boundaries involve some act of violence. It can, but that's rare. Most of the time, enforcing your boundary just means that you never, ever, ever cave on a boundary you have set. This is essential. When you set a boundary, you must never, ever, ever cave on the boundary that you set. Not under pressure. Now, remember, as an authority, it's okay for you to change your mind, right? But you got to change your mind on your own time. So only after they're done pressuring you and they realize you mean what you say, can you go into your private room and do your own meditation and then think, man, I wonder if I should change my mind on this, and then change your mind. That's fine. But you never cave, never under pressure. Mom, can I have some cookies? Not until after dinner. Please? Not until after dinner. Come on. Not until after dinner. Please, come on, please, 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 please. Come on, let me have some cookies, let me have some cookies, let me have some cookies. Hello? Mom, why aren't you talking to me? I already answered your question, not till after dinner. Oh, come on. You don't love me. You don't. You never. Dinner will be ready soon. Come down and join us. Then afterwards, you can have some cookies. You never cave on a boundary that you set, ever. Never cave. Notice the same way that child responds is the same way your narcissistic parents that are 60 years old will respond when you set a boundary. It's the same thing. First is the begging, then it's the coercion, then it's the crying. It's always something. They're always trying to get you to fall back on your boundaries, to cave in. That's their source of power, is that you don't know how to set your own rules on your resources is how they gain power, because they want your resources. It is imperative that you never cave. Now, here's what happens when you never cave. People stop wasting their time and energy. They stop crying, they stop begging, they stop coercing, and they start respecting you. So what's going to happen with that kid next time? Hey, mom, can I go outside now until you're done with your homework? All right. Because they already know. They already know I can cry, I can yell, I can beg, I can pressure. It's not going to change anything. So what's the move? Enforce your boundaries. How do you enforce? By never caving. Sometimes you have to take physical action in getting up to leave a situation, depending on what the boundary is, depending on the circumstance. Sometimes you have to ask other people to leave because they're in your house. It can get tough. It can get really sticky. But understand that we are at war. This is not the time to be soft and afraid. People who set boundaries, people who are not nice, are happier. People who set boundaries are people who are experiencing less anxiety. People who are not nice experience less anxiety. Do not be nice. Be assertive. Not aggressive, just assertive. That just means you let people know, you just state facts. You can do it with a straight face. So those are the 3 steps of boundaries: making, asserting, and enforcing. Now let's take it into the mind. How do we set thought boundaries? We have supercomputers in our heads that's giving us ideas and thoughts all the time. You can be driving down the street and it can give you an idea. Hey, you should jump into oncoming traffic. You'll be leaning over a balcony and it can say, hey, you should dangle your foot off this balcony, or just jump off entirely. It can give you all kinds of crazy thoughts. Maybe you should steal from your boss. It will just give you so many weird, sometimes not so moral, inappropriate thoughts. So you have to set boundaries on your thoughts. After all, it's your brain. Your brain is an artificial intelligence. It's going to talk back to you. I'm talking about the subconscious mind. It's going to understand you, but it works for you. It is not superior to you. You are the conscious mind. And so you must, in your consciousness, speak back to your brain when it has crazy, outlandish, wild ideas, and give it some logic. Many people make the mistake of having thoughts that they don't like and then believing that that means that they're a bad person, or that there's something wrong with them, or that they're in mental health, and they go, oh no, I can't believe I had a thought that I would smack that person, or I would jump off of this or do that and steal. I'm a bad person. You're not a bad person. You're a normal human being. Your subconscious mind is designed to throw ideas out there. It's up to you to enforce morality. And the morality is a big reason we have to have thought boundaries. So what are boundaries? Well, they're rules that you make up. So what are thought boundaries? Thought boundaries are rules that you make up for your own mind, for your own thoughts. They are limitations you place on what you will allow your mind to think about. So it's true that we can't always help what happens to pop up into our mind. But just because a bird lands on your head doesn't mean you have to allow it to make a nest. So just because you have a thought does not mean you have to allow it to fester, and you have to think about it and you have to ponder on it until it becomes something bigger in your life that becomes a regret. These thought boundaries that you set will allow you to stay close to your values. These thought boundaries that you set will allow you to stay close to your morals. For instance, you may say as a wife, I will never think romantically about any man except for my husband. That's a very good thought boundary. Sorry about the noise. That's a very good thought boundary. Or if you're a husband, I won't think romantically or sexually about anyone except for my wife. That's a very good thought boundary. So does it mean that you won't see people that are attractive? No, you'll still see people, but what will you do? As soon as you notice, oh, that's an attractive person, you're gonna divert the eyes and distract the mind because you have a boundary there. It's like, yeah, but she might be attractive, but I don't think sexually about any woman except for my wife. Or, oh yeah, yeah, he might be really nice. He might be really nice, but I don't think romantically about any man except for my husband. It's important that you understand how to set thought boundaries, limitations on the thoughts. We touched on this when we talked about propitious questions on Monday.
Please take a moment to ensure that the bag you claim is yours by matching your claim check.
The use of propitious questions is asking yourself a question that's beneficial or advantageous in order to switch the mind out of detrimental thinking. So a very good rule to make for yourself is I never think thoughts that are detrimental to myself. A very good boundary to set for your thoughts is I never allow myself to ponder things that are going to be detrimental to reaching my goals, that are going to hold me back, or that are going to make me feel bad, or that are going to tear me down. I don't allow myself to think detrimental thoughts. That is a thought boundary. That is a rule that you can make up, and it's to your benefit. So then as soon as a detrimental thought comes to mind, such as, you know what, maybe I'm not capable, you immediately, bam, say no. And you assert that there's a boundary there. And you fight against that boundary, you enforce that boundary, and you do not cave against that. You say, if the original thought was maybe I'm not capable, then you're coming back at it with, of course I'm capable. I'm very capable. I can do anything I put my mind to. Or you can use a propitious question and say, why am I so capable though? Why am I actually amazing? Why am I actually unlimited in my capacity and my capabilities? And what happens? Your mind will submit. Your subconscious mind, the brain, is meant to work for you. So when you're strong and you don't bend to the pushback, well, no, I think you're stupid. Well, no, I'm not stupid. I'm actually quite intelligent. Well, you failed at the such a, yeah, but I've also succeeded at many things. Well, but I don't know. Or, yeah, maybe you don't know certain things, but I know for sure I'm an intelligent person. I'm not stupid. Well, okay. Yeah, okay is right. I'm very intelligent. All right. Yeah, I guess you are pretty smart. Yeah, I guess I am pretty smart. This is the conversation you're having with yourself. But what you see is that we don't fall back. We don't release. We don't cave on our boundaries. So don't allow yourself ever to give in to detrimental thinking, detrimental thoughts, detrimental questions. Set boundaries for the mind. Be in control. Step up into the driver's seat. The stricter you are with your thought boundaries, which is limiting what you allow yourself to think about, that includes what you're putting into your mind through the eyes, what you're watching, what you're putting into the mind through the ears, what you're listening to, what you're reading. But when you're strict with those thought boundaries, what happens? You reform the brain. Neural pathways in the brain that aren't being used, they close up. So if you had old neural pathways that used to say, well, I'm dumb, well, I'm ugly, well, I'm incapable, and they beat you up and they beat you up, it's your fault, it's your fault. When you fight those, you will actually win the battle. When you enforce your boundaries and you never cave, you will win the battle with your mind. Your mind is just an artificial intelligence. It has no agenda except just to do your bidding and protect you. So when you say, no, that's not going to protect me, this is what we think now. I am capable. I do have the ability. I don't accept those thoughts. Well, maybe I'm a bad person. No, I don't accept those thoughts. I don't accept that. I'm a good person. I have good morals. I have good strategy. I'm imperfect, but I do my best. I don't accept those negative thoughts. When you have that sort of veracity, you will heal your mind faster because those old neural pathways will then close up. Because over time, it'll say, hey, we never use this pathway anymore. We never think these thoughts. And that neural pathway will actually close up. Setting thought boundaries is going to be instrumental in healing very quickly. And the stronger you are, the stricter you are with your thought boundaries. No, I don't think that. It's the way we say things to ourselves. Don't say I can't. I don't say I can't in my mind. That is a thought boundary. I don't say I can't. That is a thought boundary. When you say, I don't tell myself anything negative to myself. I don't talk to myself in a way I wouldn't talk to my own daughter. Those are thought boundaries. And what happens is those old neural pathways dry up. And if you do things like set a boundary such as I don't say I can't, so you always watch your wording. And this is really important with the mind. You have to watch the wording. It might seem like semantics, but it's everything, the way you word it. Instead of saying, I can't quit my job, you have to say, I choose not to quit my job right now. The chemicals you get is totally different from I can't quit my job to I choose not to quit my job right now. The chemicals are way different. This is anxiety, depression. This is calm, balance. You feel good. Instead of saying, I'm all alone, when you change the wording to, I'm so powerful on my own, because it allows me to rely on God, or I'm surrounded by angels, so I'm never really alone. It changes the way your brain works. So your brain one day starts to really think like that. It thinks like, oh, I'm surrounded. It thinks like, oh, I'm never really alone. That's the place you want to be. So you're actually changing the brain chemistry by utilizing, being strict about your thought boundaries. Now, being strict doesn't mean beating up on the self. So don't do that. I don't want to hear any back whipping and, oh, I'm so stupid. How could I do this again? Oh, I should be further than this. Oh, I'm so dumb. No, 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 no. That's not thought boundaries. That's just you being abusive to the self. Don't do that. If you wouldn't say it to your child, don't say it to yourself. But limit the brain. Just like as a leader, we limit our own authority. You must limit the thoughts that you will allow your brain to give you and to think and to ponder on. I think you'll find this very, very helpful. Keep in contact with me. Let me know how that's worked out for you.